Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Original one.
Oh, man, that'll bring you some money. That one of those,
This is all
you have one
different,
of those
is there?
lucky stickers still on the little piece of
Hey,
paper.
well, this might be worth almost as much as that much.
I hear that, I heard somebody selling one for $50.
So it's all good on this side.
And it's starting.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you and see you. You're set to go.
Yeah, I was gonna let them go first after you did the report, so we can go before you report. All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I think we're here.
If you're not here, raise your hand.
If you're not here, raise your hand. We're all here because we're not all here. All right, so we're calling this meeting of the Common Council Finance Committee to order at 6:33. With everyone's permission, I'm going to move an item around on the agenda so that we can put the Penrose presentation up front, because you people just take up too much room. We can't breathe in here, so we want to get you moved on. I want to note that this is a presentation tonight, so they're going to tell us what's up. There's still some numbers to be worked through, and so we'll go into this in depth at our next meeting. Just be aware of that, okay? So if you have any general questions tonight, we can take those, but anything that gets down into the specifics of the nitty gritty, we want to wait and we'll deal with that at our next meeting, all right? Okay, good. So then, Dennis, who's gonna take the lead?
Start with Hayes.
Start with Hayes. Hayes Clement, come on, have a seat if you like.
Is there a way for me to put this up on screen or?
Don't look at me.
Need it?
On that screen, so you would have to log in.
Never mind, we'll just use the paper copies.
Yeah, sorry, I would have needed to know ahead of time.
That's okay, no worries.
So, Hayes Clement, welcome. If you'll tell everybody what your official title is in part of this, and also if you would introduce the team here.
So, thank you, Randy. I know most of you pretty well, but for the record, I'm Hayes Clement, and I'm here this evening in my capacity as chairman of the Ulster County Housing Development Corporation. That's the entity created 2 years ago by the county legislature and the county executive to take title to the old jail site at Golden Hill, and with the objective of creating affordable housing, not only there, but in other county-owned surplus parcels that also might be suitable for affordable housing development. I'm also a former Ward 9 alderman who served on this very committee at this very table for many long nights, this time of year especially. So please know I very much understand and respect the difficult challenges or the difficult decisions you all face, particularly on hot button topics like pilot agreement. Our hope tonight with the team, beyond explaining the details of the pilot proposal and why it's financially necessary, is also to leave you more inspired and more excited about this project, which I think is a very critical and important step to easing the acute shortage of affordable housing in the community right now, and the complications that we all know that poses, not just to quality of life, but through economic development, job growth, and the creation of some meaningful equity in this community for all its members, regardless of income level. The shortage of affordable housing has been thoroughly documented by the county's Housing Smart Communities Initiative and Pattern for Progress. And I'm going to spare you the statistics, because I know each of you already knows this more powerfully than through statistics, through your own discussions and interaction with your own neighbors and your own constituents and your own ward. A little background context, because some people are unclear on this. The County Housing Development Corporation, by charter, consists of the chairman of the county legislature, who's currently Tracy Bartels, the minority leader of the county legislature, currently Karen Ronk, the director of our county planning department, Dennis Doyle, who is also here tonight, a deputy county executive, who up until now has been Mark Ryder, and then finally, an independent outside member, not employed by the county or serving in county elective office, and that would be me. In fulfilling our mission at the jail site, the Development Corporation published an RFQ to affordable housing developers in the fall of 2020 and received comprehensive responses from 5 different developers, all of whom were interviewed by the corporation with the critical members of their teams, including their architect. We then narrowed the field to 3 candidates for further interviews, due diligence, and site visits to their existing projects in New York State. From that process emerged unanimous and very enthusiastic agreement that Penrose is the right project partner for this opportunity, given not just their extensive track record, but a whole lot of other factors, including their sensitivity to all stakeholders, including existing neighbors, their strategy for on-site programming, and the quality and ambition of their site plan and also their architectural concept. This is not going to be a cookie cutter affordable housing development in appearance or maintenance standards or the thinking behind its mix of residents. The Development Corporation has been adamant from day one that this development ultimately be something that unites the community and something that every member of this council can be proud of and count amongst your achievements while in office. We got the right partner, we feel, in Penrose. Thank you very much for your critical support already, including your approval of the site rezoning. And with that, I'm happy to introduce the project team. Again, Dennis Doyle, who most of you know, our county planning director and a member of the Housing Development Corporation. Dylan Sammons, the VP for the New York region for Penrose. Will DeVella, who's a frontline development manager for Penrose, who will serve as a critical sort of day-to-day point person on this project. And someone else you all probably know already, Michael Berg, the executive director of Family of Woodstock, an agency that will now be an equity partner in the project. And with that, Dylan, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, thanks, Dave. Well, good evening, everybody. It's great to be back in Houston tonight. So his introduction is correct. I'm the Regional Vice President for Development for Penrose and also one of the partners that's representing this transaction. I was fortunate enough to be at the beginning of the RFP process, work through that selection process, which was tremendously engaging and thought-provoking, and led to some of the partnership work that Michael and I have now been working on for the better part of 2 years. We're an experienced real estate development company. My partners and I have been in business for over 50 years. I'm with the firm now about 10 years. Collectively, we steward about 27 to 28,000 apartment units, which totals to about 55,000 people put their head down on the pillow at one of our properties every night. And so that's more than the great projects that we've done, more than the cool things we get to work on. That's sort of what our brand business has embeds. It's the mission of the Penrose real estate program. So we're really excited to be working in a project like this, which is not in any way, shape, or form cookie cutter. As we'll get into, it's intergenerational, it's fully electrified, engages in rails and trails, it's got a daycare, it's sort of all the pieces. And that's what drew us to the program, to begin with. We do some really cool stuff in the public housing retrofit space. We do some really cool things in healthcare and housing, and market rate luxury development. But it's places like this, in public RFPs, in progressive locations, that we get to really flex housing agenda. And in a place like New York City, it's the best time to be doing it, I think, with the administration that we are very luckily continuing with after today. So I just want to thank you here for any questions. Again, representing the partnership together with Michael, and we'll take us out from here. Unless, Michael, you want to say anything about families involvement?
Well, I just want to say that we get 5 to 10 calls a day from people saying they have a 3-year-old, I'm being evicted. You have to help me. Where can I house? Where can I live? And we have nothing. We've had 2 years of no even evictions, which meant that there has been no affordable housing. I'm sure you're aware, 2,500 units were lost to Airbnbs. There is no housing, and it's desperate. And so it's really a treat and a wonderful thing to have a partner in Penrose. They are so skilled, they're so professional. It's having done a lot of housing ourselves, it's really wonderful. These are good people and they're prepared to do a good project. We're brought on to do the services for 48 units. There are going to be 26 units for domestic violence survivors and 22 units for frail elderly. This is our work to do case management, to connect people to the services. We're very excited by it. We're prepared to do it. We think it's a really important project. And if it doesn't happen, living in this county for people that cannot afford to live here and don't want to leave will be impossible.
Thanks.
It's impossible right now.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm going to switch over.
Okay, Will, can we hold questions until they're done?
Sure.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks, Michael. I'm on this slide, goals. I'm going to start here and give everybody just a quick overview of what this project is about. Please feel free to stop me with questions along the way, or a specific part of it that you're interested in. We'll have questions at the end. The goals outlined here are the goals that this whole development plan has been built on, that we've been working on the past year and a half. But it was relatively easy for us to put these together because they were directly outlined in the RFP released by the county. They knew exactly what they wanted to do with this incredibly important site. I think the largest county site available for this scale of housing development. It's an incredible site that needs to be developed to its highest and best potential to address this housing affordability crisis. And it's important that we do our job well. So it's very helpful that the county outlined these goals to help us build out and execute on this plan and make sure that this site becomes a really incredible community. So what that included is building an intergenerational community that's senior housing and families together, making sure that the development has broad levels of affordability, including deeply affordable housing, housing for special needs populations, but also housing for families, working families and individuals throughout the community who can't quite reach that market rate level. Leveraging the incredible aspects of the site itself, it's up there on the hill, its views in the mountains are really incredible, and we need to make sure that's built in the design, but also there's just a lot of space up there. So we have the opportunity to build a lot of network of open space and amenities across the buildings. I'll show that in a bit. Bringing commercial uses and community partners onto the site, bringing transportation onto the site to better connect it into the city, and very importantly, making sure that this project falls right in line with the county's Green New Deal legislation by making this an example project that is 100% electric, net zero, and is something that we can point to as successful, environmentally responsible housing development that can be pointed at as a successful project for all the ones to come after this. And with that, we've built out this site plan. This is, I guess, the manifestation of those goals, and I'm going to walk you through it and show you some views from the ground. Starting on the upper right-hand side is Golden Hill Drive. That's the entrance to the site. As you make your way up that, you'll be greeted by the community center property. Front half of that building facing the road is going to be a daycare that will be operated by Family of Woodstock.
For those that don't know, daycare is a terrible crisis. We've lost half of the daycare programs in the county over the last 4 years. The target for the daycare is infants and toddlers, and we are going to do first and second shift because there are only 3 providers in the county that offer daycare past 7 o'clock. All of them are full, all of them have waiting lists, none of them are accepting anymore. So this will allow nurses, for example, to be able to come to work and put their child in a safe and quality daycare.
Thanks, Michael. That's one of the ways we're trying to tie this site back into the community by bringing people who wouldn't normally come up onto the site there regularly, because this site will be open to the public, not just for the residents who live here.
Will the people have to pay if they're not residents here?
Do you want to talk about
There will-
the fee structure?
Yeah, we will be charging for daycare, yes.
For the residents and.
Yes, for the residents as well.
So it'll be open to the public. On the back half of that community building is going to be the project's fitness room and community room, which is a flex space for anybody who wants to meet there. That'll be looking out over the central green. There'll be a porch and a wraparound awning. We'll also have the UCAT bus stop there with public transit coming to the site, which is going to be a great amenity for the residents who live there, but also additionally bring people up to the site who wouldn't normally go there, which is an important aspect of this development plan. Around that central green is a number of townhouses, 2 to 3 stories for family housing. On the southern part of the site to the bottom right is a 4-story family building that faces out into the woods. And around that loop road on the northern side is a 100% 80-unit senior building. And tying all this together is a network of open space and amenities. We have a community garden, a large number of playgrounds, and even if you look down to the bottom right, there's a little blue dotted line, that's a trail through the woods. It'll take people down and connect to the Empire State Trail system down on Route 32. And to see what that actually looks like, we put 2 images here. First one is standing in that central green and looking at one of the townhouses. You can see some of the outdoor amenity space. And also the brown building in the front is the community center. That's the community room and fitness room looking out on the green. Next photo is if you kind of just go around that townhouse, you'll see the other side. And these townhouses are 360-degree buildings with entrances on both sides. There really is no back door. So coming around there, and then on the left-hand side is the entrance to the senior building. Next page, I want to talk a little bit about who's going to be able to live here, Golden Hill, and I want to walk through this colorful chart, talk about some of the proposed affordability levels and AMIs or area median income. So the first color here, yellow, is extremely low income. That's a definition by HUD. That covers 0 to 30% of area median income. For a single person household, that's $20,000 a year. For a 4-person household, that's up to $28,000 a year in the county of Ulster. The second is green, very low income. That for a single person household, $33,000, 4-person household, $48,000. The blue is low income, 51 to 80% of AMI, and again, ranging from 53 for a single person household up to 78 or 76,000 for a family of 4. The purple is moderate, and that dotted line is 100% of area median income for Ulster County, which ranges from 67,000 for a single person household up to 96,000 for the family of 4. Golden Hill is going to provide housing for the yellow, the green, and the blue. And what that looks like, you can see on the next page. Well, we're going to have a large number of deeply affordable yellow units and green units for general population, but also for special needs populations. And then a large portion of low-income units, and then reaching up into that level for families who make $50,000 to $60,000 a year and would struggle to pay market rates. But with this development, they'll be able to access high-quality, affordable housing, paying only 30% of their income, and live in a really great community. So together with this, we think we're going to build a really great mixed income community, which we think is important for this site, especially because it's a bit isolated up there on the hill. We don't want to concentrate extremely low income poverty. So this mixed income with very deep affordability levels, we think is going to be a successful approach. And it's something that we've seen successfully executed across our portfolio throughout the nation. Now a little bit about timeline. We started back in April 2021 when we executed a development agreement with the county. We then jumped right into community engagement, which was a number of meetings directly with the public down at the Restorative Justice Center on Broadway. There we got to talk to people about some of the key concerns about the project, traffic, drainage, those all came out. And also we got key input about the design, things they like, things they didn't like. I can talk about that input a bit. But that led us to finalizing our schematic design, which we finished up at the end of last year. With that input and a conceptual design that we thought was pretty far along and it met some of the major community concerns, we went into the planning board. That planning board process started in November of 2021 and reached all the way up to October of this year. To date, we've received approval for subdivision, we've received environmental approval, site plan, and we recently received a rezoning approval from the common council, as I'm sure you're all aware. That reaches out today to this red dotted line. That represents where we are today, and it's a really important part of defining a next level of development, a really next phase for us, which will kick us into finalizing detailed construction documents that will allow us to build this, and also formalizing our discussions with financing partners, knowing that we can speak to them and tell them we have the approvals in hand that are needed to build this development, and we can do this as of right. But the last real approval that we need here is this pilot. The project is not financially feasible without it. So having that approval in hand is what's going to allow us to take the next step to run towards a construction closing Q3 of next year. Lastly, before I get to the pilot specifics, I just want to quickly touch one more time about some of the input we got from the community and the benefits we feel this project will present. We held 5 community events, some virtual, some in person. Some of the key input that came out of that was the need to tie the site back into the community a little bit better by bringing a mix of commercial uses, which came from that to the daycare center idea. Also, it helped us formalize plans to bring a UCAT bus stop to the site. And we thought a little bit more deeply about physical connections to the site down to the rest of the community through sidewalks, but also that trail system down the Empire State Trail. Two of the major concerns, number 5 and 6, was traffic. With that, for the planning board, we are required to ensure that a new emergency service gate is installed on Glen Street. And needs to be in place and operational before construction starts. A second was a requirement to install a new streetlight on Route 32 and Golden Hill Drive. That will need to be completed and operational before a certificate of occupancy is issued with development. So those were 2 major concerns that we heard in our community meetings, but also during the environmental review process. And I feel that these are both, fair remedies for those concerns and things that we're required to put in place before anybody can live in this building. Lastly, touch on some of the major benefits of the center. I mean, we're really hoping that we can build an incredible community here that everyone can look upon really proudly and the county can use as an example looking forward as they work to continue to address the affordable crisis here in the county of Ulster. With that, this will be, I think, one of the largest, if not the largest, affordable projects built in the city of Kingston with 164 units of long-term affordable housing with a 30-year regulatory agreement that will most likely be longer than that and integrated nonprofit ownership. It's going to be one of the first 100% electric net zero communities. And as I mentioned before, I feel like we have been able to address some of the most significant concerns brought by the community. And it's something I'm proud to say that we've worked through over the past couple months and I think are fair, reasonable requests. Another thing I want to mention is, we're going to make pretty significant commitments to both local hiring and contracting of local businesses to make sure that this construction project, but also the operating facility itself and the economic impact of both of those things reaches down into the community and people that live in Kingston benefit from it. And finally, we're going to, before that Q3 construction start, in total, we'll be paying greater than $1 million to the city of Kingston for a variety of building department fees, site plan fees, a pilot fee, which I'll get to in a moment. But in total, it'll tally up to greater than $1 million. So before I talk a little bit about the specifics of our pilot proposal, I wanted to talk a little bit about how this development is different than some of the affordable housing pilots that have been brought before this committee, either in recent past or in recent past. Starting at the bottom, actually, this property is of significant scale, right? We have 7 buildings, it's 20 acres. The operational costs of a property this size are going to be, higher than comparative projects that are small scale. That, in addition to some of the other costs that we've seen spiraling in recent past, I mean, construction costs are up 14% this year alone. That's on top of significant gains in 2021, and it's something that probably is going to continue. Insurance costs are up 10% this year, this quarter, along the past quarter, and there's been a real challenge both on ensuring the construction risks, but also ensuring the permanent property long term. And finally, I'm sure you're all aware, mortgage rates are up about 350 basis points just in January, and most likely will continue. All these things add up to create really a whole new era of development. We've been developing any real estate right now extraordinarily challenging. And developing this property currently means that it's a totally different dynamic than it was 6 months ago. And 6 months from now are going to be probably even that much more challenging. So the challenges financially of this project are significant, and that's why this pilot is that much more important to getting us across the finish line. Lastly, the most significant aspect of this project in comparison to other affordable housing projects with requested pilot treatment is that we are outside of what's called a qualified census tract. If you flip to the next page, I can kind of show you what that looks like. A qualified census tract is a census tract mapped by HUD where greater than 50% of households are at 60% of AMI or below. If you're in a qualified census tract, you can access what's called a basis boost, which results in significant more tax credit financing for affordable housing developments. It's a crucial component of building affordable housing at scale in the United States. This map right here shows the purple is in the QCT. The little red houses here are live tech developments built in Kingston. And as you can see, us on the bottom left-hand side, the greenhouse, that's Golden Hill, clearly outside. And what it results in is a loss of $7 million in capital financing. It's really significant. And just to give you an idea of how significant, if we were inside one of those purple zones, we could pay $12.50 a door in pilot payments. For a dwelling unit. With that, I'm going to turn to the pilot specifics that are outlined, and we've given you guys an agreement and a resolution that you can review. Just starting at the top, what's outlined here is two options for annual pilot payments by the property. The first is $350 per unit per year. That's the base case. And we're going to apply for 8 Section 8 vouchers for the lowest AMI units. That'll bring in additional revenue to the property, which we're happy to pass right along to the city of Kingston through the form of a greater pilot payment. If we're awarded those vouchers, which we'll know probably in the first or second quarter of next year, we'll be able to increase the pilot payment to $619 per unit. That's passing dollar for dollar back to the city. So it's option A, option B. And that's how it's written in the legal agreement. That will escalate at 2% annually. So not every 5 years or every 10 years we increase. Every year, that pilot payment will increase by 2%. The term will be 30 years. And there's a reason that term is so long. It matches our mortgage. It matches the regulatory agreement that's going to be put on the property by the state. That's required by our lenders. Affordable housing projects with tight margins the lenders are going to require certainty on that pilot or tax expense over the long term and it needs to match the term of their mortgage. Otherwise, they can't have this property, which is operating on very thin margins, go into the red into the future. So that's a requirement of both our lenders and the state. These pilot payments will be supplemented by an upfront payment for that Q3 closing of $246,000 impact fee to the city of Kingston. And we're also introducing what I think is a pretty unique concept here of a profit sharing of surplus cash flow. Right now, we're currently proposing that if the property outperforms, we're sharing 6% of cash flow with the city. That will result in additional pilot payments on top of the $350 or $619 a year that we're paying. And I think I'll pause right there and happy to take your questions.
All right, so I just want to remind folks, that for general questions, we want to be able to review this, see the latest proposal that went out to us today, from Dan Baker, or I think actually John, or to everybody. And so, to get a feel for the project, general questions about pilot agreements are fine, those sorts of things. All right, Tony?
I don't know what general question is, but I'm just going to ask the answer and I can. And for the pilot program, $246,000, that's a one-time payment.
Yes, upfront.
And that would be Q3 next year.
It'll be at our construction closing, which right now we're projecting for Q3 of next year.
What's PVP?
Project-based vouchers, those are the Section 8
Section
vouchers.
8,000. So if you awarded them, then you're going to do $619 per unit.
Yes, the way the legal agreement that we drafted for you guys to review is currently written is if we receive that award, we'll automatically pay $619 per year.
And following on that real quick, those vouchers would be site-specific?
Project-based, yes, they will not go with the tenant, they'll stay with the project attached to certain units.
And next,
Tony, go
I
ahead.
got a lot of questions here. Because I was told I had to wait till you guys got done. And what is your, what other projects have you done in this community or in here? Any?
In Kingston,
In Kingston, Ulster County? I'll give you Ulster County.
well, do you want to talk about Yates Village?
Yeah, so this is, Tony, this is our first project in Ulster County. This is our 1,700th unit of project in New York State since we recall 6 years ago.
All right, now, and Michael had said something and that's why I lost track. You had said something about the breakdown of how many was going to be for domestic violence units. Can you state that again?
26 and 22,
Yeah,
26
22.
domestic violence and 22 frail elderly.
22 for what?
Frail elderly,
Elderly.
Yeah.
frail elderly.
Within the 80-unit senior building, 22 units will be reserved for individuals who are high Medicare users or are suffering, regular medical issues. And family staff will have a supportive services office in that senior building, and they'll be staffed by not only caseworkers, but nurses, be able to provide services on site to those people.
So 26 in the senior building,
26.
26 in the townhouses.
townhouses, and 22 in the senior building.
If I could add one thing, when William said that the uniqueness of this project, I would like to point out that the other pilots that you've given for housing are not really affordable housing. Kingston that's being proposed is proposed at 80 to 120. The Kingstonian is 14 units, it's 80 to 120. 80 to 120 is middle class housing. 30%, 40%, 50. What this project is proposing is real affordable housing for people that live here and can afford to continue to live here because of this project.
All right, my next, thank you, Michael. And so how many of these things are forming, how many of these units are going to form with this? I think we've been talking about affordable housing, 10% more,
100%.
100% is all affordable housing.
All 100% affordable housing, 100% of it will be subject to a 30 or 40-year regulatory agreement requiring us to maintain the rents at those levels.
That pie chart in the later slide breaks that down for you.
Yes, that's like we tried to match the colors for it.
Okay. All right, and you need this pilot, and they're stating that these community inputs that it must be before this occupancy thing. Streetlights must be before people can move in, the streetlight has to be completed.
Yeah, the city will issue a certificate of occupancy, which is going to require that everything on our construction plans are done and it's safe to live there. So yeah, streetlights, drought, everything that's needed.
And before construction start, we're talking about this gate that going in.
Yes, that's written up in our site plan approval issued by the planning board.
All right, that's me, thank you.
I'm not sure who wants to answer this question. This has been the jail. I can barely remember what was there before the jail. But has there been taxes paid on it as the jail to the city of Kingston? No, right?
I can answer that question. The current Golden Hill facilities that are owned by the county are tax exempt, including the old jail.
I figured I knew the answer to that question.
So basically what you're saying, you're asking whether this will now become a tax-paying property, right?
That's it.
Okay, good. So it goes
Yeah, it should be.
$0 to this amount for doors.
You saw it right through.
Andy,
Sure, I have two questions, I'm just gonna put them out and whoever wants to answer. There's 164 units, right, total? Why are we only doing, why are you only doing 8 vouchers? Why can't we do more?
Very good question. It does seem like an arbitrary number, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's small considering 164 units.
Yeah, we weren't considering really bringing vouchers to the property. What it does do is provide additional revenue. If you go over 8 vouchers at a property, it will trigger Davis-Bacon wage rates for construction, which will add 30 to 40% to this total development cost of this project, making it completely financially feasible.
But you should count the 48 each high units as additional supported units. I mean, it's not vouchers, but it's paying for the full cost of the 48 units.
There are specific streams of funds that trigger prevailing wages. State funding on its face does not trigger state prevailing wages. It's the E-check project you just that Mike was referring to. Federal funds for project-based vouchers in excess of 8 would trigger prevailing wages. Home funds for home units in excess of 11 would trigger prevailing wages, where with other sources of capital that are funded. Affordable housing generally, but for largely public housing funded through vouchers, is not really structured to handle. Cost burden is too great for the income use. Thank you.
I did have one more question. How is being decided that who's going to live here? Is it a lottery process? Is it an application lottery?
2 streams. So for the 48 supportive housing units, Michael will be providing referrals. You want to talk a little bit about?
Yes, the system, well, each high units require what's called coordinated entry. The Department of Health, HUD, requires that there be a coordinated entry system which works as follows. The person that has the most need for the project, the disability level of income gets the project, the most at need. So the 48 units will be driven by a coordinated entry system where all homeless are placed in that system. And then the one with the most greatest need will get the first apartment and so forth. It will be broken down by disability, in this case, domestic violence or frailty. But even that will be by coordinated entry.
And those households, Michael, right now are occupying either homeless shelter beds or motels being rented by
Absolutely.
county.
Absolutely. One of the things that is true is that the county will save a lot of money that they're spending in motel bills or shelter bills when the people are put in permanent housing.
And how about the rest of the 48? Is
Balance to be a lottery, state lottery.
it-
So the remaining 164 will be out of the 40. 164 minus 48,
48.
the rest is going to be on the bottom.
Lottery.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, then Barbara, did you have a question?
I did, I would let Michael Margaret know.
Okay, I think Andrea touched on the big one, because my concern is, how are you going to ensure that you guys aren't just gonna fill it with the top brackets? Like if we're looking at the 51 to 80%, obviously the 80% is the most profitable for you, but how are we gonna ensure that, it's spread across all those ranges? And then, secondly, are we gonna be able to get a breakdown of what those ranges are? As in, okay, we have, for example, the 51 to 80%, there's 17 of them that are at 55% and X, that's, we can see that, okay, you guys aren't tapping it out at the highest one to maximize your profits.
Sure. So if you go to this one, this pie chart, we put the AMI levels here with the number of units. And it's our intention to stay at these numbers here. So this is our breakdown split. I'm happy to provide what the red.
So the 80%, so the highest one has the most money.
45, 32 at 60% of AMI, and about 50% of the breakdown of the entire building is 50 AMI or below.
And the second one really is just a comment, not necessarily a question, but you may want to consider putting another bus stop closer to the senior housing, because that's going to be a far walk for them.
Okay.
That bus stop.
Yeah.
Barbara, then John, Steve, and Michelle.
Brooke, great project, I have to say that. In terms of the site, sorry, I haven't been on some of the previous presentations, although I haven't gone on mine yet. I'm a big proponent of healthcare, especially when it's incorporated into a project. It sounds like there will be some medical staff associated with some of the programming.
We're gonna have a 30-hour nurse on site that will eyeball all the children from the domestic violence and all the rest of them.
Would they be an employee of you or
Yeah.
some other? Okay. There's also, near there is the Institute for Family Health, Community Health Center. I just could never figure out exactly where it is. I always imagine one could walk over to it and also the Gateway, these two other major organizations that people of this income bracket use. So does anybody know that? I mean, I can find that out some other time. So, we're talking about all these paths, but when you go to these other healthcare facilities.
Well, there is the senior healthcare facility run by the county on Golden Hill. It's right down the road from there.
Sidewalk.
And yeah, the sidewalk will allow walking to it. They're gonna put a sidewalk that allow them to get it to kids.
Okay. Thank you.
Right? John.
I have maybe a different type of question, more of a financial question, just so I make sure I understand the document. There's the paragraph that refers to the surplus cash you touched on in the presentation. Have you performed any modeling for what those numbers look like? And in terms of timing, I see that it's a retroactive payment for a prior year. And what's the time frame in which that would be paid for the prior year? The relevance is that the pilot payment is part of our budgetary process. It's also part of the New York State property tax cap. So we do need to be able to forecast that relatively accurately.
I'll take both of these. So the answer is yes on the performance side of it. And if I thought that we had shared that 30-year performance, but we haven't, we can share that in addition to it. It's really.
I think it's on the last page of the pilot package, which has the agreements, but I'll let you finish, sorry.
There you go.
Not this package, but the one with the pilot agreement, the draft pilot agreement.
I may not have received that. I'm the city comptroller, so I'm not.
Ah,
Take some money back.
Okay.
I think
So
so.
yes, that information is in there. The structure, and this isn't our first time with this surplus cash concept, is really based on our ability to produce the annual financial statement for that trailing year to just certify to all of our fund members in the state, the cash receipts for that year. So that's what's taught to every year is like the much dogginess that goes into that. I think that we can, on a rolling year basis, with production of the AFS for the prior year, because all of our budgeting for these tax credit deals almost always has to get produced to the investor in quarter 4 of the prior year. So we should be able to produce pretty clear visual to you guys for what the next year performing years would look like. And we're also going to be the management agent record, Penrose Management Company. And so I think we can do that for you.
So I'm just looking at the schedule here. So like year 1, which figure is the cash?
So in year 1, the surplus cash flow doesn't kick in until the repayment of the deferred and reinvested development fee. So that's $3.2 million. That slowly burns down over time.
Okay.
And so after year 15,
There's no really surplus.
yeah, that's when the surplus cash actually occurs. And so starting after year 15, when there's a balance of 0 and a DDF note, this will happen.
Okay.
So do you know if it showed the 16 through year 30 performance?
I didn't put that snippet in, but.
Okay.
We can
Okay.
set it, schedule, and forecast it already.
Yeah, no problem.
John took my question. Who's next?
I think it was Steve and Joe.
Okay, just generally speaking, do you have an idea, once a shovel hits the ground, how long is it gonna take for occupancy?
We want to execute this as one phase. And we think it's gonna take about 18 to 24 months for construction. Right now, we're holding 18, but we'll see where we are.
Hopefully no more pandemics.
Yes.
Michelle?
So my question is regarding, say a family comes in at the supportive level, say a family of DV, and because of supports, we want to see them doing, better, getting on their feet, working. So say they start having an income, are they able to stay, move into, would they have to go into another apartment as long as they don't hit those 80%, above 80% AMI? What's that gonna
You're
look
most
like?
familiar with the Shady. You want to speak to that?
Well, I'm not quite sure what the question is.
So if their income grows and like they become home stable, so with
Oh, they have to pay 30%.
right, so they're required to pay 30% of their income. So an initial lease up will be an initial certification of income is gonna be $25. The 30% of your adjusted income will go towards rent. Let's say you get a fee, you're in a place where you're now making that $40,000 a year. Your income at an annual recertification, because all of these units, whether they're supported or not, are still tax credit units, federal tax credit units. You'll be required annual recertification to adjust your rent to 30% of your income, rent including utilities. And so, no, the intention of the federal program is not designed to keep people out.
Okay, but what if they go above the 80?
If they go above 80, then they become over income for the program, and the anticipation is that you are in excess of the resource that you're occupying. Like, that unit is intended for someone who is down to that sort of income level, and then we would work with them to find alternative housing. That's a great success story. It happens in some properties. It's something that we like the opportunity to address when it comes up.
Are you done?
Yeah, thanks.
Looking at this picture with the different buildings, and obviously this one says the senior building, so that's where the one population is gonna go. But the other buildings, are they going to be mixed?
Mixed throughout.
Mixed throughout, and built the same way?
Yes. No
And
difference.
then
in
these are gonna be
finishes.
exactly the same between,
Slight differences between the townhouse units, which have multi-levels. They have 8-unit washer dryers, while the
I mean, I'm talking more just quality. You're not
exact
saying,
same level of appliances, finishes, no difference whatsoever.
Yeah, incomes are all mixed. There's no segregation.
The questions? I've got a couple. So, how will the site provide a kind of community feel for folks? One that's avoids, suppose critics said, well, this is way out away from the city, it's warehouse in the core. How would you respond to that?
It's, what was the last part?
Warehouse in the core, outside from the rest of the city at a distance.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the key challenges from the start, is the site is isolated currently. And we tie it better back into the community. So I think our strategies that we came out from the community engagement sessions were physical connections, sidewalks, and trail, bringing UCAT to the site to bring public transit for the residents themselves, but also getting other people on the transit system up to the site, by visiting the daycare center. And the last is the daycare center itself, which would be open to the public, to creating some additional people coming up to the site who wouldn't otherwise come up there. So those connections, I think, are going to make a difference. Dennis?
Just one of the things that the county had when it developed its request for proposal is to create enough scale so that you essentially created a neighborhood. So the whole idea behind our affordability and diversity here is essentially recognizing the fact that we wanted to create a neighborhood where people interact. When you look at the design that was done, the design also basically has the open space associated with it and the recreation space associated with it. So effectively, you're not putting people in housing. The only thing you do is walk in your car and get in and drive somewhere else. There's a lot of opportunity for interaction on the site. So scale, design, and location all played into what went into the RFP.
Excellent, because it kind of reminds me of the 1930s greenbelt towns that were supposed to be built precisely in this kind of location. So that on one hand, people had a community, kind of a small town model, but it was out in nature, so that that had the best parts of urban and suburban. Great, thank you for that. Would you explain for folks the ownership relationship here? So Penrose is the developer, and family is the equity developer. What's the nature of that relationship and how it's come about?
Sure, we're gonna be joint venture partners, 51%, 49%. We're gonna provide development services and we'll be long-term owners together. Penrose will manage the property and we'll make all material decisions about the operation of the property together.
And so, is it the income from the property that pays for the services that are provided from family or?
Each side pays for the services.
What's that?
Each side. We wrote a grant to the Empire State Supporting Housing.
Uh-huh.
That funding is unusual in that it not only pays for the rent for the occupant, but it pays for all the services that are provided. So once we got those, that funding, we know that the 48 units are going to be covered and all the services that we have to provide are paid for.
Yeah.
It's for 5 years and it's renewable.
We're not expecting really any income from the residents in those 48 units. Rental subsidy and services subsidy come from the state for all those units.
Okay, great.
Sorry,
Sorry, guys.
what was that breakdown again? Between your
51%, 49%.
51 family?
Yeah, majority interest.
All right, thank you, that's all right.
Well, no, we did it a little less. We did it about 21.
All right. And so I know a lot of folks who are interested in this are hearing the word pilot, and that can sometimes bring up certain images that I don't think are adequate for this particular project. So can someone explain the difference between a housing pilot and an economic development pilot? So this is a housing pilot.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Sure. And so the real difference between an economic development pilot, which is really an incentive tool for spurring economic developments, self-referential a little bit, is that the basis of that pilot is an abatement against 100% of taxes. So a business enterprise, whether it's a commercial use or housing development for market rate use, it will come in and say, okay, I cannot support as part of my business plan in my initial investment 100% of taxes and tax roll. We'll negotiate a phase down of abated amounts. So first year, I'll pay 90% of those taxes through year 5. Then it steps down to 70% of abated taxes. And then ultimately by year 10 or year 15, the property is able to pay 100% taxes. And lo and behold, that's because the upfront initial capital that was used to build the thing out of the ground has usually made back its return. Right? It's based on the concept that you can increase economic value over time, raise rents, charge more for the loaf of bread, whatever that concept is, take out your initial investor and operate on a stabilized cash flow like any building that's been around for 60 plus years. Right? It's able to maintain full taxes because the initial upfront investment you needed to create the building is burned out. Right? Pretty straightforward. In an affordable housing project, there's no ability to increase the price of the rent, not by a marginal amount, nor increase the rents. Right? Rents trend in a 100% affordable housing project to 1.5% to maybe 2.5% per year. Weird things with stimulus packages that happen during COVID aside, that's generally the trend when you look back at AMIs across New York State. And so that sort of regularity of the growth of rental income can be relied upon to have some sort of phased in amount. Even in year 15 of the initial investment burn off has occurred, the rents have just never grown that way. The way that these housing projects are done within Housing Development Fund Corporation at its root is that New York State Housing Private Finance Law, Section 577, allows for that HDFC to be created, a nonprofit entity solely focused on the creation and preservation of affordable housing. Our HDFC here will run through the general year, right? So that the county will maintain an ongoing presence, even though it's selling the fee interest in this real estate, in the continued use of the property as affordable housing. By virtue of the HDFC controlling that affordability, the secondary level of being a watchdog beyond the state's regulatory agreement, it can enter into a direct negotiation with the taxing jurisdiction to negotiate a pilot that recognizes that jurisdiction's investment in affordable housing. Allows us to get to the granular level of, hey, it's not in a QCT, but it got us to the courtyard we wanted, it's got this impact that we wanted, we live with the dollar door now. This is what it means to us to be valued as affordable housing. We can negotiate that through the Article 11 process. That's the real difference, right? You're trading off a kind of stabilized, regular amount of revenue that's maintained through the affordability versus something that is a much more sort of supply demand, increase the cost of local bread, increase the rents over time for an affordable housing pilot. that helpful?
Great, so the crucial thing is for a housing pilot, specifically for low-income housing, you're recognizing that it doesn't have the usual mechanisms for return on investment.
Yeah,
And in exchange, the government then says, hey, we have this need for affordable housing. And so we're going to create a pilot as a means to get you all to build it so that the community can benefit from some low-income housing.
right. Because there's never some sort of capital event that happens in year 7, you build them off a rate deal or, goes at the low bread factory. That investment, tax credit investors putting in to create the low-income housing tax credit just burns down over time through the credit. There's never some moment where that money comes back out and the cash flow is unencumbered and get paid on taxes. It's sort of like the fiction behind affordable housing. It's a totally tax motivated investment to the people.
And then the other crucial thing is, in essence, the municipality actually wants a longer agreement because that ensures that the property stays as low income and the city and the county both have access to the incomes and outflows economically, right?
Correct. Yep. And the magic behind the 6% number of cash flow, surplus cash flow is that our structure for the development side of this is really put into a 15-year look ahead as reinvested developer fees. A developer fee that can be earned on the creation of asset over 15 years. And the yield on that, on our investment, the $2 million that's in the back of that, of the numbers book, is earning about a 6% yield, right? So like that's our skin in the game, that's our return over that 15-year period. Our first, attempt to come to you guys with this and say, hey, we'll be one of them with this, right? We're going to start off this at a 6 because we earned the 6 over that 15-year period. You put in your side of it, we put in our side of it. The project is now outperforming what we could have had. You are now effectively outperforming this. Thank you.
Great. That's what I got, Michelle.
So originally it was a 40-year pilot request, right? Now you're saying 30, but then just before you also said 30 or 40.
30 to 40.
So it's not set that it's 30, you don't,
The program that we're using with the state most likely will result in a 40-year regulatory agreement, but our mortgage will be 30 years. So we need the mortgage and the pilot agreement to match up. Our lenders are going to want to make sure that for the term that they're in the project, 30 years, that there's stable pilot real estate tax payments that aren't going to fluctuate wildly based on valuation because these are very low yield, low income projects. So they can't have things back. Does that make sense?
yes.
So, what's the difference between this and our affordable housing we have with the Kingston Housing Authority? And how, in the year 25, and if these houses, these apartments need to be fixed and renovated, how's that going to be done?
Sure. So the difference between this privately owned affordable housing and
that's the
publicly
difference.
owned.
Okay.
So that's the key difference.
Yeah, okay.
Is
All right.
this will be a public-private partnership with the county, but it will be privately owned. And we'll be on the hook for maintaining that asset in the long term because it's to our benefit. We don't want this property falling apart because we're going to be responsible for it if it goes into the rent and it will look horrible on our reputation as we try to continue to do work throughout the country. It's in our interest to maintain this to the greatest extent possible.
Okay.
So it's a little bit like the Stuyvesant Charter of Kingston Housing Authority County.
That's just what we agreed on. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, I want to thank you all for being here and giving us this proposed introduction to the proposal here. We look forward to discussing it further next month. We've got, the specific numbers that have come in today, so we'll be looking at those closely and we'll be in touch. Yes.
It's been tremendous conversation. Like most of our meetings throughout this course of the guidance has been, so thank you for really insightful questions. We felt that dialogue was create a smarter, sharper mechanism to create affordable housing. That's what we do here. I wonder if we could hear a little bit about what you see as the next steps in terms of the process back to referral to common council, just so we can plan accordingly to move this ship forward.
Sure. Well, I'm thinking that next month is when we would have the discussion about the specific numbers. And that would be, hopefully, we would be able to get that done in our next meeting, which if that is the case, and then we vote on it, this is a recommendation, right? So no matter what the vote here is, it goes to the council after that. So if we're voting, if it comes to committee, I mean, when we can think about it, discuss it in the December committee meeting, it would then go to the January common council meeting, the first Tuesday of January. So hopefully we would have it done by then. And then that would be, if,
No, I was just gonna say, I think from all our perspectives, that if you have questions and concerns, that to raise them during the time before the next meeting, so that you have opportunity to address them, you have an opportunity to consider those answers. So what I would urge you to do is either through someone at the committee level or certainly individually, you could reach out and we'll make sure that we can answer your questions as soon as possible. So we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we have all those questions and we haven't answered them when we come back the next time. We'd love to have an opportunity to make sure we answer them.
sure. So if anybody has questions over the next month, let's make sure you send them to me at least a week before our December meeting. So do you have that? Is that what you're?
Yeah, do you want them back on the 14th?
Would be good to have some representative, yeah.
So just in case there's more questions, it may be a good idea. Our next finance meeting is December 14th. Same place, same time.
Well, we want to get any questions in advance if possible, and sometimes issues.
No, I meant for any questions at the committee.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have some. Yeah, we're on the race, for sure. We've got that sort of Q3 target in our minds. That puts you, if there's any slippage into Q4, it's like the worst time to try and close the state. It almost absolutely means Q1 25. And that's the way they work.
yeah, well, we're definitely interested in getting a project going, so.
For sure.
But we also have to make sure that the numbers are right for us.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much, I appreciate
Mayor, I'll tap the big from the agenda, all the numbers. From the agenda. How you doing? David, thanks for the, no questions, no problems, thank you. Thanks for answering. That's the one that from.
From there, yeah.
All right.
It came just today.
Yeah, okay, I think it was like 17 pages.
Yeah, 17 pages, that's right.
All right.
That's why I want to get into numbers and specifics today, because we only just got that.
Take care.
Take care.
All right.
All right. All right. And just so folks know, I am still working on the disposition policy revision. So we'll have that, I'll have that in the next week or so to Barbara's office. And then we will be talking about that finally, the final discussion, I hope, on at our December meeting. Okay. So if anybody has any other issues about that, I got some and I'm integrating those.
Okay.
If anything else comes up, let me know.
I still need the paperwork, I think that Barbara handed out.
Oh,
About the,
there's like a flow chart and something else.
did I?
There were a couple of sheets. I don't, we had it at the meeting.
I wasn't here in person.
I
Yeah,
believe you handed out like a little chart type of thing, Barbara.
yeah. There were 2 or 3 pages there. All right. And yeah, and I still need to talk to some people about it so we can make sure that everything is.
I think I sent you some feedback, okay.
All right, so we are now into the new business. We're done with the old business. So we're going to the comptroller's report.
Yeah.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Got the young people stuff. I can't do it now. Thanks for.
Thank you.
From the joint, the drawing, see that's.
Well, I think we got that. We were talking about, you're supposed to do that, right?
Thank you.
And that was all part of the discussion, how to redo that whole. Thank you. You don't know?
There's not a lot of change. Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so I'll try to keep it relatively brief. There's not much update from the last one. I want to touch on sales tax report real quick. There's two payments that are not on here that county has received from the state. I've access to the state website to see what those payments are. As soon as we receive those, we will update the sheet. What I have noted is that those payments are at least in line with what we would expect. We're currently 7.1% over the prior year of sales tax. The two payments that we haven't received would keep us at or above that level. So, once again, we continue to trend very positive on sales tax, currently projecting approximately $2.6 million payment variance with sales tax. On the expense side, I've given you some figures. We've spent 71%, over 71% of our modified budget as of September. This time last year, we're at 65%. So we're quite a bit up in expenses. Some of that is intentional. We've had some transfers out of fund balance, paid down debt, and then to fund some paving costs. We've also used fund balance to pay down retroactive payment on the settlement of the union contract. So that chews up the majority of that increase, but the remainder of the increase, a couple percent there, is the inflationary factors that we've talked about all year. The rising cost of materials, electricity, vehicle fuel, et cetera. As I run down the expenses in more detail, most of the positive variances continue at or about the same amount. The regular pay, we are very favorable. We've had public works at one department. I know they have a number of vacancies they haven't been able to fill. That's not unlike other departments. And on the flip side, the overtime pay is running hot. We are currently at 96% of our modified budget. We're actually $82,000 over our original budget for overtime for the year. So that's running high. Electricity, vehicle fuel, those are all still very high. We're at 121% of our vehicle fuel budget. Get into a little more detail with some of the budget transfers we're about to see. In terms of the inflationary adjustments, we are seeing a slowdown in the inflation. For the month of September, 0.4%. Over the last 3 months, it's a cumulative just a 0.5% increase for those 3 months. Keep in mind that the annual over 12-month period is still over 8%. So you're seeing a pretty rapid slowdown in inflation for what we're seeing. The gasoline prices are actually down for the month. It's the third consecutive month. Gasoline prices are down. Electricity prices are still rising. They're both up over 15% for the year, but the gasoline is trending down. What we're seeing on our cash flow side is our investment rates are rising rapidly. You see that in everyday life. You see the bank account rates going up. You see the mortgage rates going up. I would expect next time we go out to borrow, we will see our short-term interest rate go up significantly. It did this past August. We go out next time, be higher than what it was this last August. Current contingency balance is $337,000. And then I've given you an update on fund balance. I know there are some draws from contingency requests tonight, so this balance does not include anything that's been requested. And if I have the ability to replenish that contingency as I go through the year end, I will. But most of the department budget target pretty tight on the expense side. So what you're going to see is a lot of you're seeing the pressures on the expenses, and where the offset is not necessarily always going to be other expense accounts. It's we're significantly moving revenue. So you're seeing both sides of that scale going up.
Did you explain the precipitous increase of medical reimbursement, item 7?
Yeah, so that's a quarterly, quarterly reimbursement for retirees for Medicare. That is, where's my number here? So we're 93.2% expended. I had to bring my report with me. We do a quarterly reimbursement, so that's 93% through 9 months, so you're tracking down that will end up being about 120% spent. So you're talking, under $75,000 negative variance. So, I mean, it's not a huge dollar amount, but it's a significant count.
Great. Any questions, comments for John?
Why, do you know why overtime is so high?
Why is overtime high? Well, I think there's a lot going on. I think there's a lot of projects. I think well, each department has a different factor. I mean, one of the main driving factors in a lot of the departments is staffing issues in terms of, to fill regular positions. If you take police and fire, they both have staffing minimums. Police has staffing minimum per shift, and it varies depending on the time of the shift. They have 3 different timeframes, and number of officers per each timeframe is noted in the contract. The fire department has to have 10 officers on all times, and they've had absences. I say absences, we went through this the other night. The fire department has, they've had a few people out on disability. So long term, so that's causing some overtime. Departments like Public Works, the fact that you have vacancies that can't be filled is contributing to overtime as well.
Here's that boss guy over here.
I could answer more for you if you want to. And also part of it, even take the police department. So when we did the retroactive contract for KPBA, we saw the transfer to do for the retro pay, but we didn't increase the overtime budget. So the overtime budget is really not indicative of their new pay rates. So that's a part of it as well. So if you look at KPD overtime, they're trending very high, as is KFD.
All right, anything else, John? All right, well, let's get into the money moving. So the first item is, these will go quickly, so we'll go in order. Budget transfer, Parks and Rec. This is internal transfer, so it has no financial impact. We have here it is. John, do you have anything in particular to say about this one?
No, it just, it wasn't clear if you're looking at the detail, the one page where we are taking the monies from is marked, but the page where it's the 2 is not marked. So the first page is the accounts that we're transferring the money to. But that doesn't affect your committee report.
So it's a zero impact?
Zero impact. Yeah, those are all internal.
All right, do you have a motion to discuss? Do you have it?
Second.
Ooh, where do I go?
She said.
All right,
Yeah, it's smart.
any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote, all in favor? Aye. See you opposed. Description, internal budget transfer of $33,780 to reconcile department accounts and Parks and Rec. Zero financial impact, $0 financial impact.
This one here, I want you to see that right. I want to take it from the account.
All right. second is from Alan Winchell. Feels like we just saw Alan.
Yeah.
I am submitting the attached budgetary transfer, chemicals and supplies, account for wastewater treatment, transfer a lot of plants to paper quarry through the end of this year. And it's an internal transfer, so there's no financial impact. It reads, request transfer $13,420 for chemical materials and supplies, zero financial impact, good, it's there. Okay,
Motion.
He didn't say anything. That's not fair.
some
Let's
people,
meet.
I don't need to, no. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passed unanimously. All right.
Excuse me,
Yes.
uh,
Okay.
since I'm up next, if you want, you can go with Sue because I have to wait until after this anyway.
All right. Oh my God. Let's do it here. Let me get several. You with the Rondell Lighthouse, too?
Yes.
Number five.
No.
Oh.
Right in here.
Right. So,
So you have questions?
what is this?
Yeah, I know.
There's a punch, there's a boxing, round. Yeah, that's it. So this says, yeah, well, go ahead and tell us, see what's up.
Okay, well, essentially, we all know the Rondout Lighthouse. The city owns it. We have a MOA with the Maritime Museum, who does most of the operations during the course of the year. In Superstorm Sandy in 2012, the lighthouse sustained quite extensive damage. The entire electrical system was, as a result, had to be ripped out and removed. So subsequently, we've been working with FEMA, Department of State, Army Corps of Engineers, DEC. We do have consultants on board, Weston and Sampson, who have been extremely helpful in designing a proposal. We have a couple of minor things to complete in terms of final design. One is to obtain an easement to put the electric across private property to Central Hudson land or main pole. And so we do need a couple of bonding. We were requesting bonding. We did in 2019. I wasn't in charge of the project, but there was a resolution passed by the council authorizing the expenditure of $401,736.47. I don't know where that came from, but the 90%, it was 90% reimbursed by FEMA and the 10% was reimbursed by New York State issues. So in looking at cost projections, I've spoken with the consultants as well. We have come up with what we believe is a valid project cost estimate at $711,737. That's the original 401. And it includes, let me put my notes together here somewhere. Number, but it includes an amendment with Weston and Sampson for $43,800, and that's to do the easement work and legal work necessary there. And then it also includes an amendment for $90,700, and that is to do the construction documents and do construction oversight while it's going on. And the other additional costs would be to what we foresee in terms of work and elevated costs for materials and supplies. And because we are dealing with the lighthouse, there is no physical road out there, so getting materials out there, getting workers out there, we need boats and barge and things like that. So there's different costs associated than you would be dealing with if you were doing a on-land project. And then there's the seasonality of everything as well. So we are looking, we're hoping that construction will be done in 2023.
Oh, it freezes over, and we just drive over it, right?
Tony, yes.
Emotion. I want some discussion on this.
All right,
Second.
any discussion? Tony,
I just, I mean, it seems like a lot of money for this, infrastructure that we are not utilizing at all. And I just had a conversation and my spouse, some months ago, we were on a boat trip. I just don't understand, and maybe this is that, why we're not utilizing this infrastructure we have? Why are we not trying to, you know, I know some years ago, I believe it was the Boys and Girls Club, Cornwall, had like an auction where people got to stay there or had lunch there. Why we're not doing anything with this property that we had and that we're getting these extra nominal costs to keep it maintained. And I mean, I know it's, you know, historical building, whatever, and there's some costs, we're not getting anything in return for it. Can't we just abandon it or no?
I would never abandon it. I think it's a very unique opportunity for Kingston to have a lighthouse. It is a working lighthouse. The Coast Guard does operate the light there. And yes, we've talked about other opportunities, how to utilize it better. Right now, there is no electric, there's no heat, there's no running water out there. So we need to start getting these systems in place, and that's what we're looking at. We did, and when we lost the electric, Central Hudson basically reeled the line in. And once they took the line out the jetty, there was no putting it back the way it had gone in originally. So we had to go through the Army Corps, and we have a special marine cable that is required. You can't just run the standard cable, you can get it, you know, Home Depot or any electrical supply place. And you can't just buy the quantity of cable that you need. If you need 1,000 feet, you can't just buy 1,000 feet. You have to buy a whole spool of cable, might be 5 times that amount. So what we've been trying to do with Weston and Sampson and the Army Corps is find other individuals that also need the same product and pool it together. So we're trying to do cost savings that way as best we can, because otherwise we're going to have cable that we'll have to end up surplusing maybe through our systems. But in terms of utilization, obviously the past couple of years with COVID, they couldn't do anything out there with trips out there. But the Maritime Museum has a very active program. They have, in my eyes, have really stepped up a lot over the course of the years that I've been involved with the lighthouse. And they have the manpower, they have the boats to run out to the thing. So they're doing school trips out there that you might not see on a regular basis. They are doing tours out there as long as they can seasonally. They provide all the docents. They do cleaning, regular cleaning out there. You know, it's limited, yes. And they do have some volunteers that we have provided materials and supplies to restore different elements. There are a lot of installations out there. It's difficult though to put anything of good quality because there's no temperature control right now out there. And unfortunately, what has happened is the plaster surfaces we had the cold and the humidity, obviously being right on the water. That does a lot of damage if you don't have a sustainable heat system in there. We did look at alternative heat, and electric, using solar or using geothermal. Solar was immediately ruled out by federal government. They said absolutely not. We weren't even gonna put it on the building, we're gonna put it around the outside railing. He said no. And to drill down around the perimeter of the base was just, I don't even want to tell you what the cost was. It was just way too expensive. We weren't going to be able to do that, so.
I mean, I know I approached either you or the mayor some years ago about having a walkway or something like that, and I was going to be told that we had to get approval from the Army coordinator or something like that we had walking tours out there. And, you know, again, I feel I would love to see more. I hadn't seen that really, these visits or anything like that. I just like to see this infrastructure, a good, important part of our history, but I'd like to see it utilized more. I think, we're going to put this cost in here that, and, how long in the future they're probably going to have to redo this again if we can't get heat out there and running water, electricity, and all that stuff.
Water, yeah, I mean, potable water is a whole different ballgame. We did have a composting toilet out there for a while. That is a management concern, but it worked. Right now, I mean, the other option is put a porta potty out there seasonally. If you for lack of any other service. We could, trying to think, we've talked about it being used for overnight stays, as a B&B kind of thing. That gets into a lot of other issues that we would have to work out. A walkway out there along the jetty would be great. It would have to be designed accordingly, and you'd have to go through the Army Corps. I don't know how receptive they would be. Just to get the permit to run the cable along the inside of the jetty took us over a year.
It seems that from what you're saying, you guys were looking for alternatives to, and that's what I'm just throwing out there, suggestions, and, again, I'm not privy to what other discussion you had. And we could just try to see what we could do to utilize that building for the community, and it'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, I'm open to, a lot of ideas. We used to rent it out. When we first when the city first took it over, we rented it out for events and functions. And that went really, really well. And it's doable. You can do that. COVID set us back quite a bit.
Right. So in the document you provided for us, it said with resolution 21 of 2019, FEMA was going to pay 90% and the other 10% was going to be reimbursed by whatever acronym you used. But then on the 3 bullet points underneath, we're saying increase the total project cost to $711,000, provide bonding for the spending in the first instance and awaiting reimbursements. But the third one is bonding for the expected city share of project costs. If FEMA is providing 90% and the other 10% is the New York State.
We are currently in discussion with FEMA about these additional expenses. We've had a couple of telephone conversations with them directly. They have not made any final determination on what, some of it, I think they are going to be funding. I don't know if they'll fund all of it.
So worst case scenario, we'd be technically on the hook for, what is that, 310,000 between the 401 and the 711?
Yeah.
Michael, just to clarify too, the bond ordinance will state that the amount to be bonded long-term will be reduced by the amount of grants available. So, you'll have that documentation when you're voting on it. And I would also, just a quick note, I would recommend, if we're going to consider approving this, to make the bonding request for even $750,000.
So it's 715,000, but with the stipulation that we're getting reimbursed 90% of that?
Well, currently, we're estimating, and what's already been in the PW, the FEMA work plan is 401,736.
Okay.
Would be reimbursed out of this 730, right? With the hope that more of that will be reimbursed as well.
Okay. I see. Okay.
But what it does do is give our office the ability to borrow for cash flow. FEMA does take a while to pay, so.
All right.
So,
I would just make
That's the 711. Or that's the 410.
Yeah.
And 401.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we might get additional from.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Have we ever looked into what Saugerties does with their, because I mean, don't they always rent out their lighthouses and? you
Yeah,
know,
they
have
actually,
any-
they operate it as being big,
Yeah,
right?
it's also the land connected,
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
except for,
Sometimes it
so,
makes it
depending on.
makes a big difference.
Yeah.
any further discussion? Hearing no more discussion, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
See you next week.
We'll definitely want your patience for that.
Did you need this?
Have a good night.
Did you need this?
Yeah, you can have it.
Okay.
We're done now.
That's right, I'll keep right on walking. Closer to dance. Good evening once again, everyone. Seems like, man, just about what to do.
All right, so first item, if you're looking on the electronic document, we're at page 13, where there's 3 requests here. Starting from 13. And the first one is 140,000.
John, did you have the updated? Of the next, this one's okay, it's the other.
Wait, that's.
So first, are we on the 149.13 one, or?
We're doing the 140 first.
149.13.
Okay. When you get to that 39, here's the new page. The 39, $39,000
Yeah.
transfer. This. Correct.
All right, sir, what's this first one about?
This is, we need to go to contingency to cover some bills that are currently running over. We have the next sheet where, for the capital purchases from last year, with the increases across the board as we were ordering our vehicles and equipment. We have an overage of 13,000 for those purchases.
No, so it's, it's basically saying the cost of the vehicles went up. That's okay.
Right, so from the
I'm just
time,
trying to get it.
from the time we order them through the process and they come in, they're inflated. Next one is vehicle fuel, $50,000. And again, that's just from the upgraded costs. Nothing really I had to do about that.
That's an administrative, I'm sorry.
Keep going.
And then the streetlight electricity is up $77,000.
All right, any questions?
How would you, we have to go back to the discussion first? All right, so let's go to the last one, the streetlights, what's that?
Well, that's all your charges, all of your charges from Central Hudson.
All the lights.
Yeah, the citywide lights. Yep. So whatever was anticipated last year in our budget, I mean, everything has increased. The delivery fees and the rates themselves have gone up and, nothing to be done. It's unforeseeable.
Pirates.
With the LEDs, I mean, is that making any kind of difference? I mean, that
Initially, it
seems.
did. It did make a lot of difference, and then just the added cost of the fees coming from the supply, that just, everything that we saved is gone.
Well, we're still significant, we're still $100,000 less a year with the LEDs. It's just, even with the LEDs, the cost is more than it was because the electricity rates are going up.
Right.
But we were spending, just to give you an idea, I can pull that out, it's astronomical what we were spending.
Delivery fees, it was the same.
Yeah,
It's more than the actual usage.
Yeah, at one point, just to go back, we used, as far back as 2016, we were spending $533,000 a year. This year, through what, 8 months, I think, in here? Let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, we're at only 165,000. So I mean, like, we only budget 140.
Yeah.
So, we're running hot there, but we're way under where we used to be years ago. Yeah, if we didn't have LEDs right now, we're
Back to candles.
The last couple of years, last 2 years, we're 180, 154, so we're 165, we're trending higher, we're gonna be over 200. So the rates are causing, this budget variance, but we're still, compared to where we used to be, in better shape.
All right, any other questions? In that case, motion to discuss. Steve Shabbat, seconded by Michael Olivieri. Any discussion?
We just have it.
It reads,
It's very different.
the report reads $140,913 contingency transferred to various accounts for cash detail, transfers to cover shortfalls in accounts including coverages and capital purchases. All right, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Second one, page 15, I believe it is. Or no, page 18, where it starts, for those of you who are keeping score at home. This is the $39,000 one. Or actually, zero impact, but anything there we need to know?
No, just the internal transfers covered Rob Peter to pay Paul.
Okay,
39.
do you have a motion to discuss?
Second.
Second by Tony Davis. All right, reads, general fund, internal transfer of $39,869.81 as per attached, transfers to cover shortfalls in accounts and put funds from insurance recovery revenue back into operating accounts. Zero financial impact. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously.
This is time to move to the next one, Randy. I think you have heard one.
Okay, good. This is the $14,000 one.
And this again is zero financial impact.
All right, we're up to page 25 in the agenda packet. All right, okay. This is from the sewer fund, internal transfer of $14,000 from sewer fund. Balance to account vehicle fuel to cover shortfall account. Do we need an account number here? Or is that?
I wrote down.
It should be on
On the last page.
the last page, right?
Yeah, I will, I'm gonna write it right.
It's John, to be determined.
The TBD.
Yeah.
It's now been determined. Okay, good. There you go.
Oh,
Great.
that's, okay.
All right, motion to discuss.
Motion.
Simon
Second.
Davis, second by Michelle Hirsch. I already read this one, I think, yes. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. There we go, thank you. All right. You can stick around if you want to, but I think we're done with you.
You can sit around. I just had a couple of quick questions on, have you ever looked into solar streetlights?
Talking to the wrong department. Yeah, I don't know.
I was doing a quick search and seeing them, but I didn't know if that was something, like if it was cost effective to get or anything like that, but.
I don't know that much about them.
Yes.
And we're still working out the
Yeah.
kinks.
So,
Well, we are locked in because we did bond for those, we're locked in at least for that site.
All right, then, we're going on to 2 items from the comptroller.
Yeah, these are just, they're two customary levy requests in behalf of our public works for our outstanding invoices. And these are the unpaid amounts that would be levied onto the 2023 tax bills.
All right, so the first one reads authorize unpaid building department invoices totaling $156,698 per the attached list to be re-levied onto the city's 2023 general tax bills. Motion to discuss. Motion Davis, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion?
I just wanted this clarification, so these are like, explain it to me, John.
These are charges that are assessed by the building department on a particular property.
Property, okay.
Property, attached to that property.
Because they did something on the property?
Yeah, I mean, it could, well, I mean, there's a variety of things that charge could be related to, but, yeah, they did something on a property, they didn't pay it.
I didn't pay it. Okay.
They got bushes that obscure the view at a corner, right? And they're supposed to cut it down to size and they don't. And
I got a call about that. It's not me, it's someone else in my same name.
I'm
Like, I don't have a property on that street.
Yikes.
Yeah.
All right. Any discussion on that one then? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. And the second one is similar for DPW, authorize unpaid DPW invoices totaling $27,285 per the attached list to be re-levied onto the city's 2023 general tax bills. Motion to discuss. Michael Vieri, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. And unless I'm mistaken, that's it. Anything else anybody wants to bring up? Money things? Okay, when is our next budget meeting?
Monday.
Monday evening, 6:30. Do you remember what we were discussing?
That's KPD and comptroller, and then Tuesday is city hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tuesday City Hall, so
Yeah.
that should be a longer one.
Yeah.
Send the pizza.
We bring pizza.
Monday
Don't
just
bring pizza, go for it.
Monday's just keep.
Monday is KPD and comptroller.
Yeah.
Last year, we switched comptroller and clerk just to spare a little bit of city hall night, but, those two departments. Laws and rules on Wednesday,
City Hall.
and then the redistricting.
That is still going on.
When is City Hall?
Every day next week.
16th, City, no.
The 15th is city
City
hall,
Is the re-levy?
with laws and rules, but yes, so and then the 21st.
Yeah.
Michelle, did you get the second
And
re-levy?
maybe know that one is 7:00.
Thanks, sir.
But you have that as the 21st at 7 p.m.
21st is 7 p.m. like Parks and Parks. Parks and Parks.
And again, I won't be here, bro.
This is where the first one to get out fast.
Oh, those are the right ones.
No, I'll go meet there.
Motion.
We got the budget. All right. Just have a budget meeting for me then.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn? All right, we're adjourned. 8:17.
All right.
Thanks, Elisa. Thank
Thank you.